Well, welcome back. This is Bio 212, and we're still working on chapter 25. This will be part D. And what we're doing is we are now thinking about what does Mother Nature have to do when we are at a place where the body needs to figure out nutritional versus energetic states of the body. Okay? Meaning, how does it know what to do with, say, glucose inside the bloodstream? How does it figure out what's going to happen? And what we want to do is we want to start off with that glucose 6-phosphate. So let's draw that again for you. Let's go purple. Well, first let's draw a cell. Cell. There's a nucleus inside of it. Yay, big deal. All right, we're going to go like this. We're going to put purple outside here. Actually, I'm going to put the purple inside the cell. You guys remember how it got inside here. It used insulin to increase the number of transporters, and now we actually have to phosphorylate it. That's how the cell actually knows it has glucose inside of it. Glucose 6-phosphate. It's like a signal. It says, hey, we now have glucose we can break down. Okay? And it can be turned into glycogen, or it can be released back into glucose, into the bloodstream, or we can use it to synthesize nucleic acid backbones. Remember, the sugar phosphate backbone is made of deoxyribonucleic acid, right? So the glycolysis with 2 sugar phosphate backbones, sorry about that, or we can break it down and make ATP. So these are the 4 fates. And what's going to happen? Those fates have nothing to do with Greek mythology, by the way. Okay? Or your grade. Well, I guess if you don't understand them, it could be with your grade. Okay? You're going to actually want to think about what's going to happen. So if we actually have that glucose 6-phosphate, what can happen to it? Well, it can be converted into pyruvic acid. Yay. Then it can be converted into coenzyme A. Yay. Okay? But here's what I want you to see. Pyruvic acid, if there's enough oxygen, is going to go to cellular respiration. If there isn't, remember, it can be converted into lactic acid. But look, it can also be made to use alanine. What? Okay, alanine is amino acid, right? Or gluconeogenesis. So we'll worry about that later. Acetyl coenzyme A, when oxygen is low, when ATP is low and oxygen is plentiful, you're going to make ATP via like a Krebs cycle. Okay. It can also be used for the synthesis of certain lipids. We don't tell you which ones. In fact, I don't even want you really memorizing all this. I just want you becoming conversational about the fact that not everything is broken down into ATP. I should say anabolized to ATP. We have an absorptive state and we have a postabsorptive state. That's what you want to be thinking about. If you've absorbed materials, let me underline that. Okay, whoa, what just happened there? Control. Okay, control, underline. Okay, ingested nutrients are going to enter the bloodstream, hepatic portal system, and glucose should be available for ATP production. I think everybody inside the room gets that. During the post-absorptive state, let's put that there. Let's go like this. The state of absorption of nutrients from the GI tract has been complete, and now everything else inside the body needs to be thought about, right? The nervous system and red blood cells depend on glucose, so maintaining that steady state glucose is where insulin effects, bold, underline, italicize, are important. In fact, I write dominate here, right? So soon after a meal, you're going to have glucose, amino acids, triglycerides inside those chylomicrons, everything we learned inside chapter 24. Nobody lied to you. You have 2 metabolic hallmarks where oxidation of glucose for ATP is what's going to happen. But remember, we're going to store excess fuel molecules inside hepatocytes. Underline that. Adipocytes. Underline that. And skeletal muscle cells. Pop quiz. What are they? Well, in hepatocytes, we're going to store glycogen. Inside adipocytes, we're going to store triglycerides. Inside skeletal muscle cells, we store glycogen. And it's going to be the beta cells that release insulin to promote the entrance of glucose and amino acids into cells. So now we have all 4 macromolecules taken care of, right? Lipids, carbohydrates, and amino acids. We didn't think about the nucleic acids here, but you have to imagine if they're going to be broken down, you get the building blocks of the nucleic acids, meaning the individual nucleotides, as well as the sugar phosphate backbone. Okay. Without freaking you out, let's take a look at this figure here. So what you can see here is how some materials can be stored inside skeletal muscle tissue as glycogen, but also if we're going to take amino acids and we're going to build all of those contractile proteins. Glucose can be oxidized to make ATP inside most tissues inside the body. In fact, I go so far as to say all tissues that are actively metabolic. And then we think about what's going to happen inside the liver. This can get a bit confusing for people, but remember, excess glucose is converted into triglycerides. Triglycerides end up being stored inside adipose tissue. Likewise, excess glucose can be stored as fatty acids, ultimately being converted to triglycerides inside adipose tissue. And amino acids, if you're having that all amino acid diet, converted into keto acids, which are then converted into fatty acids, which are then converted into the triglycerides. Okay, so all the pieces of our story so far can be thought about. So here's the thing. It's about 4 hours after your last meal. Absorption inside the small intestine is essentially complete. That's why many people who pay attention to their caloric intake sort of time their meals to get the most effect. Okay? And blood glucose levels will start to fall. So if we were drawing that, remember, about 4 hours post-digestion, even in purple here, glucose levels are starting to fall inside the body. So the main metabolic challenge, of course, is to now maintain that, which is when we would use glucose breakdown. Okay, so you'd actually have, glucose production by the breakdown of glycogen, lipolysis, neogenesis, sorry about that, okay, and lactic acid and or amino acids. You can also have glucose conservation, where oxidation of fatty acids is primarily broken down. Lactic acid is primarily metabolized. Amino acids, ketone bodies, okay, and breakdown of muscle glycogen. So there's obviously a way to do this, but we're not going to worry about that. I'll let your trainers talk with you about that. Okay, let's get out of here. Let's do this. Let's take a look at this figure. So that's what I was just talking about. Now, again, this is one of those things where I don't want you memorizing what's actually going on. I want you to just think your way sort of through it. It makes sense that if you're not utilizing glucose, what other energy stores could you use? Well, there's adipocytes. You can make glycerol and fatty acids. Glycerol can be converted into glucose. Fatty acids converted into ketone bodies. Ketone bodies converted into ATP. Okay, so I want you to think critically when you're looking at this. Notice here, ketone bodies at starvation is when we actually make ATP, sufficient ATP to keep things moving. On the whole, though, still our major energy source is always going to be glucose. Okay? How do we actually regulate this? That's what you want to be thinking about. Hormones in the autonomic nervous system that regulate postabsorptive state. As blood glucose decline, insulin secretion falls, so therefore glucagon concentration should go up. That's exactly what you see here. And as it increases, you actually have a release of glucose into the bloodstream. Okay. Sympathetic nerve endings release epinephrine and norepinephrine. Okay. And they stimulate lipolysis, which means breakdown of fatty acids, actually breakdown of triglycerides. Okay. Bold. And glycogen breakdown. So we're going to take the polymers of glucose and make glucose available for the circulatory system. And what's going to happen as a result of all of this, of course, is that all of this is going to release heat into the body. And it takes a certain amount of metabolic rate with which we are using to make ATP, such that in the end we have the basal metabolic rate, which is measured within a quiet, resting, fasting condition. So if you really wanted to find out how many calories you should be ingesting each day, you figure out your basal metabolic rate in these states. You haven't just gone for a run. You're sitting still and you've been starving yourself for some period of time. Okay? Because at the end of the day, the amount of energy required to raise 1 gram of water 1 degree centigrade is the number of calories you have to ingest in the course of a day. Different numbers for different people, different activities. There's no one perfect number for anybody. And all those machines that you play on are all just approximations of the calories that you've burnt. Okay. Well, how do we actually keep that temperature where it's supposed to be? Well, we know the hypothalamus is going to do this. And if you think back to the fever response, right? Your body knows that there is a pathogen inside of it, say viral infection or something like that. And you increase the temperature so you can kill off the structure. Remember, if you're too warm for any period of time, you break down the three-dimensional structure of protein. So everything comes at a cost. So despite the fluctuations in environmental temperatures, there are mechanisms that keep it in a specific range. Heat can be lost through conduction, convection, and radiation. You know this when you go for a run and it's cold out. You can see the heat literally leaving the surface of your body. And remember, it's your hypothalamus that's keeping track of all of this. Now, at the end of the day, thermal regulation, okay, is, if we're thinking about it, the core temperature declines, all the blood has to go back into the core of the body. And what's going to happen is release the thyroid hormones, epinephrine and norepinephrine will increase cellular metabolism such that you end up shivering. That's why you can't control shivering. These hormones have been released into your body, and therefore they're going to do what they're supposed to do to keep you warm. What's going to happen, of course, you get too high, you have dilation of blood vessels at the skin, you have a decrease in the metabolic rate. This is why you feel sluggish and lethargic. And at the end of the day, maybe even the beginning of the day, okay, you're going to release materials to the surface of your skin. So as a breeze blows across your skin, it takes the heat off of your body. And this is it in a figure. Nudge, nudge, hint, hint, wink, wink. Any change in temperature is going to cause a series of thermoreceptors inside the skin and the hypothalamus to figure this out. And then notice in this one little purple box here, it says the preoptic area of the hypothalamus is what's going to help you figure out what's going on inside your body and then release the releasing hormones. Did you guys catch that? The releasing hormones, so we can activate thyroid stimulating hormone. Okay, so we increase T3 and T4 inside of our bloodstream, which is going to cause all of these effects in conjunction with epinephrine and norepinephrine. The last thing I want to finish off chapter 25 with is a discussion of some of the things that we don't tend to think about. And those are the minerals. These are the inorganic elements that occur naturally in the Earth's crust that sometimes are inside of our food, such as calcium, phosphorus, iron, and iodine. And we've been through the idea that if you don't have iodinated salt, you end up making goiters, so you can't process thyroid hormone. But most of it, of course, is excreted inside your urine, inside your feces. What I want to make sure you understand is minerals that are part of those, it's like one essential day vitamin sort of things, right? Actually help regulate enzymatic reactions inside of your body. You can't just laugh these things off. Cofactors are required to maintain as close to possible enzymatic responsibilities. Okay? Sometimes you're going to have, if not minerals, vitamins, and these are organic nutrients that are required in small amounts to maintain normal metabolism. They don't provide energy, and they certainly don't start as a building material. And like I said a moment ago, most of them are coenzymes, and most cannot be synthesized inside the body. If we think about, say, vitamin K, that's produced by the bacteria inside your gut. No vitamin K, no blood clotting. You know how it goes. You can use where do we go here? Sorry about that. You can use as provitamins, but no single food contains all required vitamins. There are two types of vitamins. There are fat-soluble and there are water-soluble. Those building blocks for vitamin B were all those niacin structures we went through for NADH plus H plus and F8DH2. But then our fat-soluble ones, our A's, our D's, our E's, and our K's. These are interesting to think about why Mother Nature would make something fat-soluble. And that's really simple. It means it can diffuse through the membrane, so the cell can actually get what it needs. So today we made 4 sets of discussive slides here to walk you through chapter 25. I know you've actually read the material yourself. I want you to focus on primarily the first 3 sets in terms of how we actually get energy from, say, a molecule of glucose using glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and the electron transport chain. The remaining slide set here has been, how does the body know what to do with it? Okay. Does it need glucose? Does it need fatty acids? What's it going to do? Or if I don't have any glucose, can I get energy from, say, amino acids or fatty acids? Okay. That's what I want you to be thinking about. Obviously, inside class and during the review, I'll help you focus more specifically on what beyond the numbers of ATPs and where they're made you want to be thinking about. Okay. So have a good night. Bye.